What if the worst moment of your life turned out to be the door to the only place you ever truly belonged? Imagine this: a young woman standing in the middle of a sun-hammered frontier town, surrounded by strangers, with nothing but the dress on her back and a secret she couldn't say out loud. That the man who just handed her over wasn't a stranger. He was her brother. That's where this story starts. Not with a villain in a black hat, not with a gunfight at high noon, but with something quieter and much harder to shake. A betrayal from the one person who was supposed to protect you. Stick around, because by the time we reach the end of this story, you're going to ask yourself what it really means to be treated with dignity. And the answer is going to come from the most unexpected place in the whole American West. In the territory of New Mexico, in the year of 1873, the land didn't forgive weakness. The sun pressed down on the red earth like a flat iron. Dust devils spun through empty streets, and the wind carried the kind of silence that made men nervous. Elara Crane was 23 years old, dark-haired, brown-eyed, and carrying the kind of stillness that people mistook for coldness, but was really just a woman who had learned, young, that showing too much feeling cost you something. Her father had died the winter before, leaving behind a leaky cabin, a half-dead mule, and a debt of $140 to a man named Gareth Voss, the kind of debt that compounded like weeds in dry soil. Her brother, Cole, was 28, big-shouldered, charming when he needed to be, and deeply, fundamentally selfish in the way that certain men are when they've never been made to answer for it. He had two choices: work off the debt himself over 2 years, or find another way. He found another way. Cole struck a deal with Voss, not for money exactly, but for the debt to be wiped clean in exchange for his sister's service, her labor, her time, her presence on the property of a rancher named Silas Mercer, who lived 40 miles out in the hills and hadn't been seen in town for close to 3 years. Cole told Elara it was work, a good job, room and board and fair wages. He told her it was temporary. He didn't tell her what he'd traded. She found out 3 days later, sitting in the back of a wagon, when the man driving it, a quiet, weather-worn hand named Amos, accidentally said the wrong thing. He mentioned the arrangement. He saw her face change. He went quiet for a long time after that. By then, they were 25 miles from town. There was nowhere to go. Now, before we go any further, let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where the only path forward was the one you didn't choose? Drop that in the comments, because this story is about to go somewhere most people don't expect. Silas Mercer. Most folks in the territory knew the name and little else. He'd bought the land 12 years back, built it up from nothing, and then, somewhere around the time his wife passed, just stopped coming into town. Hired men brought his supplies. He dealt through letters. Rumor filled the rest. Some said he'd gone mad with grief. Some said he was scarred. Some said he drank. Frontier towns run on rumor the way engines run on steam. It doesn't much matter if the fuel is true. What Elara expected when the wagon crested the last ridge and the Mercer ranch came into view, she couldn't have told you. But it wasn't what she saw. The ranch was not a ruin. It was not a dark, crumbling thing. It was large, weather-beaten in the honest way that working buildings are, with a long barn, a stone well, a garden that someone actually tended, and a porch with 2 chairs that looked like they'd held weight recently. It looked, strangely, like a place where someone lived. Amos helped her down from the wagon without ceremony. He told her the house was unlocked, and Mercer would be in the north pasture until sundown. Then he unhitched the horse, nodded once, and rode away like a man glad to be done with something uncomfortable. And Elara Crane stood alone in the yard of a stranger's ranch with $140 of her dead father's debt hanging invisibly around her neck. And she made a decision. She went inside. She was not going to wait on the porch like a parcel. The inside of the house told her more than an hour of conversation might have. It was clean, not military clean, but the kind of clean that happens when a person cares about their space, but has nobody left to impress. There were books, real ones, not just almanacs and ledgers, stacked along the windowsill. A shelf held a small collection of river rocks, smoothed and rounded, the kind a child might gather. There was a framed drawing on the wall, a woman standing in a field, not quite smiling, done in pencil with the kind of steady care that takes a long time. Elara stood in front of that drawing for a while. Then she went to the kitchen and found it understocked but organized. And because she was tired and hungry and furious at her brother and needed something to do with her hands, she started making supper. Silas Mercer came in from the north pasture as the sun was going red. He was 41, tall, lean in the way ranchers get, not thin but whittled. He had a beard he kept trimmed, gray threading through it early, and eyes that were the specific color of river water in shade. He'd had the message from Voss 3 days ago, and he'd spent those 3 days trying to decide how he felt about it, and he still hadn't settled the question. He smelled food before he opened the door. He stopped in the doorway for a moment, a man recalibrating, visibly. The kitchen was warm, something was on the stove, and a young woman he had never met was sitting at his table drinking a cup of his coffee, with the particular posture of someone who has decided, quite deliberately, not to be afraid. He said, "You must be Miss Crane."
We need more wood.
She said,
It's almost
"I
out.
made supper.
I know.
I hope that's all right.
I know who said
I'll need to
she-
know what you have in the pantry so I can plan properly going forward."
How could you know that?
He stared at her. She stared back. He took off his hat, hung it on the peg beside the door, a motion so automatic it was clearly muscle memory, and sat down across from her. "Going forward," he repeated. "I assume there are expectations,"
I
she
think
said.
You know what I mean.
"I'd like to know what they are."
I do.
He was quiet for a moment.
About it.
Then he said, very carefully,
I
"Miss Crane, I owe you an explanation about the nature of this arrangement." "I know the nature of it," she said.
I saw
"My brother sold me to clear a debt.
we both
You're the man who agreed to the terms."
pretend otherwise.
The room got very still.
You knew.
"That is not," Silas Mercer said slowly, "how I understood it."
I did not.
And that,
I told
right
you
there,
not to trust them.
is the moment the whole story shifts. Because here's the thing about the frontier. It was full of transactions dressed up as something else. And sometimes a man doesn't know what he's actually bought into until it's already sitting at his kitchen table, drinking his coffee. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you know we don't pull punches here. And if you're new, welcome. Hit that subscribe button right now, because things are about to get very complicated in the best possible way.
Gentlemen, I
Silas had been told by Gareth Voss that the girl was willing and in need of placement. The kind of language Voss used to make arrangements sound charitable. He had known Voss for years. He had not known Voss was this kind of man.
I saw her.
He sat with that knowledge across the table from Elara Crane, and he did not try to explain it away. He said, "I'm not going to hold you here," she said.
I'm telling you
"And go
exactly
where?
what it's gonna cost
With
you.
what?" He had no answer for that, because the frontier was not kind to young women alone. That was not a comfortable fact, but it was true, and neither of them pretended otherwise.
Creek, Henry.
What followed was one of the stranger conversations the Mercer Ranch had probably ever hosted. Practical and guarded, and circling the real subject the way two people will when the real subject is too large to look at directly. By the end of it, they had an agreement, not the one Voss had arranged, a different one.
Together.
She would work the ranch, real work,
6 months.
with a real wage,
Real work,
for 6 months.
real wage.
At the end of 6 months, she would have enough saved to go wherever she chose. She would have her own room, her own key, and she would answer to nobody but herself for anything outside of the work.
You gonna give me
"And my
one?
brother's debt?" she asked. "Is no longer your concern," he said. She looked at him for a long time. She was trying to find the trick in it, the angle, the thing he was going to want later that he wasn't saying now. She didn't find one. She said, "All right." He nodded once, got up, and went to put away his hat, which he'd somehow already moved to the table during the conversation. And she started dishing out the food she'd made, and that was that. Here's where I want to pause and ask you something, because this is the part of the story that people always want to debate. Would you have trusted him? Right away? Like that? Tell me in the comments. What would you have done? The weeks that followed were careful. Silas Mercer was not an easy man to know. He worked hard and talked little, and what he said, he meant, and he expected the same. He did not hover. He did not test. He did not treat her like a guest, or a prisoner, or anything in between. He treated her, with some adjustment, like a capable adult who had been placed in an unusual situation, which was exactly what she was. She learned the rhythms of the ranch, early mornings in the barn, the horses. He had 5 of them, and each one had a name and a personality and preferences that Silas tracked the way some men track weather. The garden, which turned out to be the one place where something close to softness showed up in him. He knew every plant in it, which ones needed shade, which ones needed arguing with. She learned that he read late into the night, and that the river rocks on the shelf had belonged to his wife, Eleanor, who had died of a fever 6 years back. She learned this not because he told her directly, but because one evening she asked about the drawing on the wall, the pencil sketch of the woman in the field. And he said her name, and the way he said it told her everything she needed to know. She didn't push further. She understood what it was to carry something. What she didn't expect was that he would ask about her. Not in a pressing way. Not in a way that expected anything back, but slowly, over meals, over work, over the long silences that life on a ranch is full of, he asked. Small things at first. What had she done before? What she knew how to do. Whether she'd always been practical, or whether that was something she'd had to become. That last question caught her off guard. Had to become, she said, finally. He nodded, like that was an answer he recognized. 6 weeks in, Gareth Voss came to the ranch. He rode up on a fine horse, wearing a town man's coat, and he brought 2 of his men with him, and he smiled the smile of a person who expects to be in control of a situation. He asked to speak with the girl. Silas came out onto the porch alone. What passed between them, the exact words, nobody recorded. The frontier was not much for documentation. But what the ranch hand Amos reported, later, to anyone who asked, was that Voss left within 15 minutes and did not look like a man who had gotten what he came for, and that Silas Mercer stood on that porch until the dust from the departing horses was completely gone before he went back inside. When he came back to the kitchen, Elara was standing near the window with a cast iron pan in her hand. Not in a dramatic way, just in the way of someone who had prepared for contingencies. "He's gone," Silas said. She set down the pan. "What did you tell him?" she asked. He thought about it for a moment. "I told him the arrangement he described to me was not one I had agreed to. I told him that any legal claim he thought he had was based on a transaction involving property that a man cannot own, and that if he came back, I would be filing a report with the territorial marshal." She looked at him. He looked back. "That's it?" she said. "That's it," he said. She nodded slowly. Then, "Thank you." He said,
That's incorrect.
"You don't have to thank me for basic decency." And the way he said it, flat and certain, like he was correcting a small error in arithmetic, was the moment something shifted in her. Not dramatically, not like the dime novels, just a quiet turning, like a lock that's been stiff for years finally finding its right position. Let me tell you something the frontier doesn't get credit for. Among all the lawlessness and hardship and rough edges, there were men like Silas Mercer. Quiet men. Men who did the right thing not for an audience, but because not doing it wasn't something they could look at in the mirror. History doesn't write many songs about them. Maybe it should. And if you think this story is winding down, stay with me. Because 6 months was almost up. Elara had enough saved by the 5th month to leave. She knew it. He knew it. Neither of them said anything directly. On the last day of the 5th month, she sat down at the kitchen table and put her savings on the surface. Not to count them, she'd already done that. But because she needed to think, and thinking worked better when the object of the decision was in front of her. Silas came in, saw the money, and sat down across from her without a word. They were quiet for a while. San Francisco, she said. That's where I was thinking. There's work there for women who can keep books. I know numbers. You do, he said. You've been keeping mine for 2 months. She looked at him. You noticed? I've been noticing since you reorganized the feed ledger in week 3, he said. There was the faintest thing in his voice that might have been humor if he'd had more practice at it. She almost smiled. I didn't think you'd mind. I didn't, he said. It was better. Another silence. The long kind, the comfortable kind. The kind she had come to recognize on this ranch as something different from emptiness. There is a particular quality to the silence between two people who have been through things together and don't need to fill the space with noise.
The planting looks good this
The garden needs replanting in the spring, she said. It does, he agreed. The east fence has a section that's going to come down before winter. I know.
The books for the spring
You'll need help with the books for the spring sale.
I'll
I will. She looked at the money on the table. She looked at him,
regret this.
and she thought about a door and what it meant to walk through one versus what it meant to decide, freely, that you weren't ready to yet. I could stay, she said, through winter, if you needed someone. He looked at the table, then at her, and in his face was something that a man like Silas Mercer had probably not let show in a long time. Something careful and honest and a little bit afraid, in the way that hope always is. I would not argue with that, he said. And that was it. That was the whole declaration. Two people on the frontier, at a kitchen table, with everything unsaid between them and everything understood, deciding in the plainest possible language that they were not done yet. The money stayed on the table until she put it back in the tin. She planted the garden in the spring. The east fence got repaired. The books were impeccable. Her brother Cole came to the ranch in the spring of 1874. He rode up looking humble, which was a costume on him, and he asked to speak with his sister. Elara came out onto the porch, the same 2 chairs, and she listened to him explain that he'd had no choice, that the debt had been crushing, that he'd thought it was a good situation, that he was sorry. She listened to all of it without interrupting. Then she said, "You made a transaction out of a person. Whether the situation turned out well doesn't change what you did."
Enough.
He started to say more. She raised one hand, just slightly, just enough.
All right, ma'am.
"I don't hate you," she said, "but I'm not the same as I was, and I'm not coming home. If you need to write to the ranch." She went back inside.
You've been gone a
Silas
long
was
time.
at the stove.
No.
He didn't ask what was said.
Coffee's still hot.
He just handed her a cup of coffee, which was the Mercer version of a very long speech. She took it. And what does a story like this leave you with? It leaves you with a question, maybe, about the difference between what people are willing to do to each other and what people are capable of doing for each other. The frontier didn't create either of those things. It just removed everything that hid them. Elara Crane had been traded like a ledger entry. She ended up with the only thing the frontier rarely gave anyone, a place where she was genuinely seen. Silas Mercer had spent 6 years in a house full of silence and river rocks, and a pencil drawing of someone he couldn't get back. He ended up with something he hadn't known to ask for. Neither of them would have called it a fairy tale. They would have called it work. Good work, the kind worth doing, the kind that turns out, quietly, to be a life. If this story moved something in you, I want to hear about it. Drop a comment below. What was the moment that got you? Was it the porch confrontation with Voss, the money on the table, or something smaller that you noticed? Tell me. This channel exists for stories like this one, and it grows because of people like you who share it. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. We've got more stories coming that deserve to be heard. The images, events, and characters in this video are an artistic reconstruction created using artificial intelligence, developed independently with the goal of entertaining and reflecting on the values of the human experience. The figures, settings, and situations presented are fictional and are the product of creative authorship. This is not a historical document. For accurate accounts of life in the American West during the 19th century, we encourage you to consult academic sources, historical archives, and the work of historians who have dedicated their lives to this subject.